All right, cool. More questions then.
More questions. Okay, I'm literally picking up from where we left off before because we had so many. So this is exciting. Right. This one's relatively specific, but can be answered generally towards the masses. For a beginner, a 25-year-old male, would your advice to get in shape be to go low calories and lose fat first, or higher calories to try and put on muscle, going to the gym 4 times a week, doing a combination of cardio and strength in each session?
Okay.
Where would you start?
Let's kind of create like a bit of a picture of someone, because obviously it's going to depend on what kind of end of the scale they are. If they are quite a skinny guy, or they're a bit more body fat, I think that will depend on kind of what approach you take. If it was someone that was quite skinny, you're probably going to be a case of like, okay, we can push the calories, and get a good sense of base of resistance training, and slowly just increment the calories up as we're improving on our strength training, because you're going to get almost a body recomp effect over time, as you're increasing in your efficiency of strength training and making that progress. With someone that is possibly on the other end, that might need to lose a bit of body fat, wants to get sort of a bit fitter, this is where it kind of gets tough, because really you want to get some kind of quick result to have some buy-in to what you're doing. Because if you're in quite a bad position mentally with your body composition, is that to an extent of the body fat you're carrying, or that you're just sort of feeling weak and small? Which obviously, if you're at that sort of top end of the body fat kind of scale, it's going to be, okay, let's get you in a probably like maybe a short-term fat loss phase, drop some body fat with utilizing our strength-based resistance training as much as possible, improving on our technique, because you're still going to be able to build muscle because you're so new to training. So you're going to have a phase where you're still building some tissue, although in a relative sort of calorie deficit. To some extent, it's not going to be amazing amounts of muscle tissue, but if we can drop you some body fat fairly quickly, get you some good results, and then transition you into longer phase of, okay, we've built a good foundation now, we got you used to training and handling some sort of fairly decent volume in training, we can then push that and progress that into a mass gain phase, because you're going to be able to handle it, and we can start to push that volume a little bit higher as well. So I think that's generally kind of my approach, but it does become a little bit more specific onto the client and their state. But
I like that. The age old, it depends.
Yeah, like, but no one wants to hear it depends, and that's it. Like, you can give some kind of reference around that.
Oh, absolutely.
But I picked up he does cardio and resistance-based training in the same session. Again, it's going to be dependent on his situation. I would put as much, what I typically recommend and would program for clients, is I take cardio away from a session if I can, so you've got as much energy reserves and focus to apply to both, if your goal is to improve in some cardiovascular element as well as the training. If there's limited capacity to do that, I would put it at the end of your training session, so it doesn't impact the resistance-based session as well. It's just a little bit of extra advice there, but it might be doing exactly that anyway. So You got anything to add to
Cool.
that?
I like that a lot. Not really. I think one of the things I thought in hindsight was when I first got a coach was I was very adamant that I wanted to lose weight, and I think I actually would have been better just kind of getting my ducks in a row, getting my nutrition kind of on point first before dropping my calories. So with hindsight, I think sometimes you can turn around and be like, is dieting right for you right now? But obviously that's a longer topic and totally individual dependent. But no, I'm happy.
That's another a
Next
case as
question.
well, like depending on where they are in that kind of rule of like whatever it's called, spectrum, that's the word, that's what I was looking for.
Spectrum.
Where they are on that kind of spectrum, like often it might be good to just go in with, okay, let's get you at a settled maintenance.
Yeah.
And from that, you're probably going to drop a little body fat anyway. And your starting kind of diet numbers might just be your normal maintenance numbers. It's not necessarily going to be a major deficit. It's just like let's start getting some consistency with your diet, consistency with your training, and implement that over a couple of weeks. You get everything settled to a state of, okay, we have this consistency, body weight's regulated. Now, where do we want to go? And you can make those decisions.
Okay. God, this question. Thanks, Tara, for this one. Favorite glute building exercises, as yours are a 10 out of 10, which I think
Why,
was
thank you.
me, but
I think
could
it's
actually,
me.
which could have been aimed at you. Oh dear. Thank you for the compliment. We'll both take it. Luke's got pretty solid glutes. Favorite exercise. Oh God. Do you do much glute work as a guy?
Not usually. I will do some if I find they're sort of a bit weak. So every couple of programs, I might put in some direct glute work. The majority of mine has come from lots of squats and deadlifts, sort of early portion of my training, and obviously a lot of lower body squats, deadlifts, lunges, and then some assistance machine work. So that's kind of what's built a lot of my kind of glute strength and sort of the foundations there. And I would sometimes like include some like pre-activation work, which might be just some light body weight stuff, like going back some time. But recently I haven't done a lot of lower body training, so I can't say I've done much, but I did do the glute hip thrust machine the other day.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I do really rate them, more so because it's easier to load up than a barbell, but there is limitations on them because the pins are so short that there's only going to be so much you can load on there.
Very good point.
To be able to progress with. And sometimes I find the belt a little bit awkward if you're going sort of heavier, whereas it's easier to sometimes just go to a bar. But I did used to do like some heavier barbell hip thrusts in my programming, primarily to bring up the glute strength and sort of lock out for my deadlift, because that was part of like my issue, my sort of weak area. So I took away some of my volume from that, put it towards hip thrusts to bring up that strength. Cool. I think with the question in terms of like exercises, we've mentioned a couple, but I think it's going to be dependent on like girls or guys and how much kind of volume you're wanting to put to like direct glute work. Whereas I think in this kind of scenario, I was saying like a lot of guys would get enough volume for their glutes from squats, deadlifts, like RDLs. May need some small assistance work with like adduction, abduction. potentially, but if they're doing anything like any sumo deadlifts, like the majority of their glute activation, like glute volume, is going to come from that stuff. Whereas with a girls program, we're probably going to want to put a bit more in, and then I would go with some like hip thrusts.
I love a hip thrust. At one point I had about 24 sets per week towards glutes. I'm actually not sure how I managed that. It was a little bit ridiculous. But YOLO, it was fun. I am a lover of a hip thrust. I know some people do argue that they don't get particularly good glute engagement on a hip thrust. I do. I always have done, even when heavier. I will near enough unfailingly leave a sumo deadlift in my program. I wouldn't say I directly get much of a pump towards the glutes, but I love it. So it's going to stay in for me. And any crossover that I get from that, just for lower body in general, I love. I do love a Romanian deadlift. The one thing I miss about True Gym actually is I really miss their kickback. I preferred that one to the one I've got at the new gym. I like a frog pump. I'm not ashamed to say it, but a lot I've taken it out of one of the girls' programs this week because she just is like, I do not like doing this. Don't like it.
I quite like a frog pump as well, where I've got quite tight hip flexors. Before any sort of lower body work, especially if I'm doing like squats or something like that, I'll usually do something that opens up the hips and the hip flexors, and starts to get a bit of sort of like pre-engagement for the glutes. But something like frog pumps, or just some glute bridges, leg swings, things like that.
At least you're not doing banded crab walks, Luke.
No, the thing that is good with like a hip thrust is the loading is almost entirely on the glutes, compared to like squats, deadlifts. There's going to be a lot of work then done by the quads, the hamstrings, and the erectors, just in that position, as well as all those exercises are axial loaded. So you're just adding more axial loading and pressure through the spine, whereas something like a hip thrust isn't. So you can apply the force and the weight directly through the glutes, that we're getting a better contraction, as long as you're getting everything set up properly. Like a lot of people might find that it's getting tight into like their quads and they're using them to sort of drive up. That's usually sort of where the position of their foot is too far back, so they're almost forcing in to try to get that extension of the knee, that it starts to feel that sort of tension there. But those are probably like favorite exercises.
And significant periods of time eating, not constantly dieting.
If you don't eat, you don't grow.
Nope. And also Sal's hands, genetics. My bum's always been big. The shape's changed, but it's always been sizable. And I think sometimes when you got a bit more to work with, I think it can help. Right. Next question. Can you explain the whoosh effect? And this client said, I know you've explained it to me before, but I found it fascinating and think others will too. And technically, I do have to point out that it's not really been proven to be an actual thing. However, I quite like it as a way to help, I guess, potentially get people to stick on course a little bit longer when the scales aren't immediately dropping, and then they're like, oh my God, I'm going to give it up. So the theory is that our body doesn't want to give up fat cells. This is what's marketed by like Slimming World and stuff like that. Our body doesn't want to give up our fat cells. So essentially, when you start to lose body fat, the cells then fill with water, which is why the scales don't change. And then the reason you see a big drop in weight is because that water then eventually gets pushed out. However, It's not really true. It's one of those things that gets peddled, and I believed it for years and I never looked into it, and I was like, oh cool, that must be why I've seen a weight drop. And it is a little bit upsetting when you learn that it's not really true. Makes me feel quite sad. Would you know where it came from other than Slimming World?
No, not really. Like it might be one of those things, like I need to do sort of research into behind it as well, like I say it's not something I've specifically looked at. But we do see periods with clients that it's almost like it matches, like the theory matches sometimes what you're seeing. And so you're seeing like it's holding on, and then suddenly you might have a good little drop, and then you create this kind of theoretical model behind it which kind of explains it, and sometimes it's like, no, nice, that explains that, but whether that is actually what's happening or not, I did
look it up and it's not, apparently, which was quite upsetting. I guess the thing to note here is that by the time we reach adulthood, we already have the number of fat cells that we're going to have for the rest of our lives, and we don't lose fat cells. You kind of want to think of your fat cell like a balloon, in that when you are in a position where you're potentially in a calorie surplus, your body will store excess energy and the balloon will inflate. Going through a period of fat loss, putting yourself in a calorie deficit, the balloon deflates, but it doesn't physically go anywhere, which I think is where there's like a bit of a failing on the effects part. But it holds quite true in that we often see people's weight will cling on and then they'll have a drop. And especially with women, this can be around like different phases of their menstrual cycle. Some women are, typically see their lightest weights the week before their period is due. And therefore you can almost then make, like you say, you can make the theory fit what we see happen. But yeah, it's not really a thing, which is sad. Okay, should we move on? Ooh. Oh, what a question. Why do females lose strength when they are on their period? The answer technically they don't, not necessarily. It's a really hard one. The menstrual cycle, oh god, it's a minefield, partly because the age-old answer, every single woman is different, whether you are on the contraceptive pill, the implant, you have the coil fitted, you've always just been lucky and your periods are like nothing. There's so much variability. So yeah, I actually don't, not on the whole.
That you seem to be quite strong kind of through.
Yeah, it's only because I post about it all the time. I'm like, I'm on my period, help me. Do you know what, though? The last month, I think creatine's taking an effect. It's been mental. So basically, one of the things that we will often see is, in part, if you're suffering with a lot of cramping, headaches, even if you just feel discomfort because you're quite bloated, that's potentially going to have a negative effect before you've even got in the gym. So, there can be a bit of a correlation between, oh, well, I'm on my period and I'm weaker. But it's actually because everything in you is really going, I just want to be at home with a bag of Cadbury's buttons, the orange flavour, and a hot water bottle. But on a hormonal level, in the second half of your cycle, so weeks like 2 through to 4, we get a rise in progesterone. So our body temperature is higher. And because basically our body is just, honestly, this freaks me out, preparing for a potential pregnancy, which honestly, that thought, I'm like, oh, this is mental. So because there's so much going on inside of you that you literally cannot see, we get so bogged down by literally, oh, I'm bleeding, this is horrific. But our body's working 24/7 on these processes. So it's not surprising that your body's like, make way for a baby.
Yeah.
A little bit crap. Whereas sometimes when your periods arrived, especially towards the latter end, like if cramping's not too bad, pains aren't too bad, you feel like Wonder Woman. Absolute queen machine. But yeah.
I mean,
Talk to us about your period, Luke.
Mine, they don't go too well, to be honest. I just curl up in bed.
I thought that was what was wrong with you last week, wasn't it? You weren't actually
Yeah.
ill, you were on your period. Okay. I see.
I think with a lot of people, sort of talking very generally now, and I'll try not to get a lot of hate from this, but it can be down to that kind of psychological effect of it. And it's one thing that triggers another. And that's where we often find that it's almost kind of a downward spiral, because you start to have like cravings, then you eat more, and typically like higher sugar things, then you sort of get a bit of a crash, and then you start to feel more tired. Your sleep might be disrupted because of all of these things trickling on, that then when you're going to do your training session, it's not a direct effect of your period, but it's an effect of the things that has affected.
Yeah,
is the reason that why you might then feel more tired, and lacking sort of strength. And it might just be that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that you think that you're going to be weaker, so you are as well.
Yes.
Because there's times if I'm not feeling in just a good place just to train, like I will then feel weaker in training when there's no actual reason to. Yeah. And sometimes you just get harder sessions than others, just by how you're feeling on that day. Absolutely. And it might just be,
and also
the correlation isn't the causation.
Yeah. And also it depends where you are in your training cycle. So there's so much that goes on anyway. I think it's wise to track and to maybe, within like your training program, make notes on, if there was a particular reason that you feel like your session suffered. But the more you go into it going, oh, well, this is going to be horrific because, or I'm due on, it's the same with cravings and stuff. Oh, well, I'm due on in 2 days, so I'm definitely craving chocolate. It's not that you actually just wanted chocolate, but you then legitimize it as, oh, well, it's, it's a period craving, so the normal size bar isn't going to do me. I'm just going to have to double this up. I think you're right. There's a lot of self-fulfilling prophecy, which leads us very nicely on to the next question, which is, how should you adapt your training when on your period? My answer, you probably don't need to.
No, unless you've got like extreme reactions on your period, like extreme like stomach cramps or things like that, that you could go down the route of trying to periodize your training on a time where it kind of syncs with your cycle.
Yeah.
So that you might have your deload week every time that you are due on, and it kind of sinks in with that, so that you're not needing to push as hard at the gym training when you're on. But generally you probably don't need to.
Because if you're anything like me, it changes every single month and you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to walk into the gym and leave feeling like Beyonce, which was me last month, or you're going to be a mental nutcase who is not fit to be around anyone, which was the month before. Not a clue. Okay, the next question, I'm going to switch question order. This person felt the need to put disclaimer, I'm not pregnant. I'm sure this is one of my clients, but I can't remember which one. And I wish I could remember. But interested to hear your thoughts on adapting training programs during pregnancy, brackets. Not sure if you or the chap you're podcasting with are qualified in this, which I really enjoy. I was just like, oh, the chap,
The
my Luke. Partly because who was it? I think I was talking to my best friend the other day, and she can never call you Luke. What was it she tries to call you? Like every single, it's something like Adam. She's like, how's Adam? And I'm like, who is Adam? I haven't got a clue, but it's always when she's talking about you. Sorry, Ellie. So I don't know about you. I don't hold a pre or postnatal qualification.
No, I don't.
But we are, I mean, you are still as a personal trainer qualified to
I think
train pregnant women. It's a lot of it is you've got to get their GP sign off, and a lot of it is like training on your period. It's learning what the specific client can or cannot do.
And for me, I wouldn't be comfortable enough to go down that route. I would always just refer out to someone that does that almost like solely as their profession. And for a large part, you don't need to change your training to a large degree, but adapting some of the intensity of the training and some movements are not advisable. But that's generally for, I kind of see it like you make the decision to, well, normally you'd make the decision to get pregnant and go down that route. You might not, but those are things there's going to be trade-offs, and I would just consult with someone that does like specializes in that area. Same with nutrition side of things, consult with someone that specializes in that area, and just you're going to probably adapt your training for like that year or so, because it's not even to the extent of just that pregnancy, it's going to be for the time after that, the recovery phase, and the first kind of year or so of the child's life is going to be very different for you from how you're training now, from a stress management time, just general fatigue, because you're going to be getting up in the middle of the night like plenty of times just to feed, and everything's going to be very different. So I would invest the money to work with someone that specializes in that. And that's why I would always just refer people out.
So I've had quite a few women actually who've had maybe babies like 6 months before and come and train with me, like once they've had sign off and stuff. I haven't technically yet had a pregnant client, although you
that they know of.
Well, no, technically I had one who is now pregnant, but she called time early on just because first trimester hit, and energy wise, sickness wise, etc. She was like, I'm literally not doing anything. And again, what I've learned in recent months is very much from a nutritional perspective, probably your first trimester is going to be whatever you can eat. So, you know, if you were dieting, you might want to come up to maintenance. It might not actually matter, because if you're that nauseous, all you can eat is toast, you're not going to be hitting an absolute shed load of calories. You're probably not training. You are probably, you know, potentially you're not even going to be going and getting your steps in, because you'll just be trying to sleep and get through like work and everything else you need to. She may come back to me after first trimester and you know, see how she gets on there. I did listen in on a live on supporting like pregnant clients, and there are qualified people out there who specialize in working with pregnant women. But I've also known women in the gym who've trained throughout their pregnancy, and it's a bit luck of the draw. You know, some women sail through their pregnancy. There was a woman that used to work at the gym where I went to. She was still deadlifting at 8 months pregnant, looking incredible. And there are some women that end up with back pain, leg pain, hip pain, and can't. So in terms of an adaptation, you're obviously not going to have things, you're not going to be doing a load of ab work,
No.
a lot of stuff where you're getting up, getting down on the floor. Some women might be able to squat particularly well, some might not. It's all about working to what specifically the individual is capable of.
As a general rule, you're not going to be pushing any PBs. Like you wouldn't try and increase your volume through that to what you've done previous to the pregnancy. It's always going to be less, and I think it's probably just a case of trying to replicate movements, just keep moving and keep the baby safe. I've done some like little bits where it's come up in like courses and like through the nutrition stuff, but I always struggle to really remember it, just because it doesn't really, I think with coaching as well, it's like you have to have a big interest in that, and you retain more of the information you're interested in, whereas I don't really work with pregnant ladies, so no.
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I've got a lot of women in like the 25 to 35 age category, and I am just waiting for a barrage of babies at some point, which is going to be great, because I tell all of them, I'm like, bring the baby to the gym, I will do the cuddles, I will tell you what to do, I will pay more attention to your child. A bit like Rachel when she brought in her dog this week, couldn't tell you what she trained. Okay, moving on from the pregnancy bit. This actually came from Emma Story Gordon, which I just felt very flattered that she even responded to my question. I know.
Hi, Emma, if you're listening to this.
The question was, what was the last thing that you laughed at? Which I really liked. Probably half of the stuff in this podcast, to be honest. But what was the thing that really made you laugh last? Can you remember?
I can't remember specifically, although I know it's just going to be of something of like just bullying Sarah.
Sarah.
Just winding her up, just bullying her about something, and then just getting into fits of laughter about it.
All those women out there that have got you on their crush list are going to be like, right, horrible boyfriend, take him off.
No, we do it to each other. It's like banter with it. So
as long as she gets you back. I don't know what I really laughed at was. I probably laughed a lot the other night because I drank a bottle and a half of wine. I was having a great time. But none of the content of that is probably fit for podcast. So, yeah, okay, right. When this has been a head F up for many. When you blend fruit and veg, i.e. a smoothie, does it only count as one portion? Yes. I actually think somewhere else down here, somebody else has said, why does it only count as one portion? Oh, no, that was why when you blend fruit and veg.
You researched this the other day, didn't you? I
did. I had to Google it again because I've told so many people, and then I was like, just because it is. It's because the fruit and veg is broken down and the sugars are released. So therefore, your body doesn't have to do any work to physically break it down. So it's a no. Like, just no. Just don't almost have smoothies unless you need low volume stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm team don't drink your calories unless it's alcohol anyway. I think unless I've got somebody on a lot of calories who's struggling to fit them in, I would say just don't bother with a smoothie, really.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get more satiety and more satisfaction from actually eating the whole fruits and vegetables anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, it's sometimes like a frozen banana and blended in with a protein shake is banging. But I'm not a big fan of like smoothies because it's typically the people that don't need it as well that are the ones that are going for it in the thought that it is healthy, but not understanding the fact that it's packed with a lot of sugar and doesn't really count to that.
Those hands doesn't count. I love ruining people's lives with that one.
Yeah.
Because I'm horrible.
But you're also losing out of the digestion effects of actually like chewing the food as well, which
Yeah, surely there's no thermic effect of food if it's a smoothie, or minimal.
very minimal. There would be some, I believe, from like just the process of digestion,
Okay.
but not a lot. But yeah, like there wouldn't be like the salivatory response from chewing and understand like that kind of stuff, which is all part and parcel of like the digestion process.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, moving on to some training ones now. What should your rest time be between sets?
As long as it needs to be, but as short as it can be. In
Oh,
like a
boom.
yeah, because
Yeah.
what we're trying to do when we're resting is like allow ourselves to recover to perform the next set as efficiently and effectively as possible. So if our next set is going to be a like triples on deadlifts, you're probably going to need a little bit longer from the last set to be able to hit that next set effectively again to your target outcome result of working heavy and working through strength. If the aim of the set is to build up a lot of blood accumulation in the muscle, building sort of lactic acid and things like that, then we're going to keep it quite short because that is part of the aim for that. And it doesn't really matter where our reps are falling, because we're probably going to have like a larger range. It might be like 15 to 30 or something in a range. So as long as we're working within that to what we're trying to progress, as a sort of general rule, I'd say to people it's going to be like 1 or 2 minutes, but it doesn't need to be timed. Just go off how you're feeling. But how you're feeling isn't a couple of scrolls on Instagram. It's like as you make taking note of actually how long it's been. Can I perform this next set effectively? Yes, no. And also ask you like the harder question of, am I just delaying it because I don't want to do it?
Me, always, yes. If it's not related, yes. I like that. I have nothing to add. Okay, next question. Is just warming up on the cross trainer or treadmill enough before weight training?
So
no.
With the
no,
not really. Like
not really.
With a warm up, the cross trainer kind of portion of like an effective warm up is just going to be raising the body temperature and increasing blood flow. So that is one portion of it. The second base kind of portion of an effective warm up is going to be specifically movement related. So preparing yourself for the movements that are going to come. So if we're doing lower body, we want to make sure that our joints are like lubricated and effective. Like we're working through the range of motion that we're going to be working in our session. And for like the next exercise, like the range of motion, loading pattern, and technique execution, because sometimes it takes a good couple of reps just to find that kind of groove of the movement that we're going to do. Something that I tend to put into my warm-ups as well is any restrictive work that I need to do. For example, like if I'm doing some lower body stuff, my hips are quite tight, so I'll do some like hip flexion, hip extension work just to kind of open them a little bit, some like leg swings just to create some sort of dynamic movement into my warm up, so I'm then prepared to go into the squats. But no, like that the cross trainer CV kind of part of warm up is just to elevate your heart rate, increase blood flow. And you might have walked to the gym and done that already, or you might go into doing like a barbell complex or something where that's going to elevate your heart rate anyway, in addition to getting some of that dynamic movement and movement preparation in place as well.
Yeah, agree. Basically, you're never going to be able to walk up to a deadlift platform. If you know you can lift 100 kilos and start lifting 100 kilos, the most important bit is going to be the progressive warm up of weights going on the bar, working through that movement pattern. And also, it's all well and good. Your knee might be fine on a cross trainer. You go to squat and it gives way. So take your time, people. Okie dokie. Next question. Is it true that if you're sore from weight training, if you keep moving, it makes it better? Yeah.
To a degree, linked to the warm-up, if what we're doing when we're moving is increasing blood flow. As we're increasing blood flow, that's going to help the muscles recovery by providing nutrients and oxygen to the working muscle. So it depends what that movement is. If you're sore and then going to do a PB deadlift, probably won't help you recover. But like general light activity will. So you might have like active recovery days where you're going for long walks, a little bit of like swimming or just light cycling, something like that.
Soreness doesn't stop you from getting in your steps, people. So it's not an acceptable excuse.
It's not.
It's not. Good. Okay. Your favorite go-to snack? Ooh.
See, snacks, these are time dependent. Are we talking like an evening snack?
Wow.
Mid-morning snack?
Wow. You snacks, and I'm just jealous of that. Let's go. Give me an evening snack.
Now, I like a good like bowl of ice cream with something in.
Oh my God, if
like,
anyone's on a diet, please turn off.
Yeah, sorry. I think, but I don't snack. I have like larger and smaller meals.
Yeah.
So if I was to have like a smaller meal that might be a snack, it will be like a protein bar or like a protein shake with a piece of fruit.
Smaller meal that might be a snack.
But I try not to generally snack on like bits and pieces. One, because I know that if I have a little bit, no matter how like hungry or not I am, I'll just want more of it. So I will typically eat more frequent meals, and because I'm on like 200 grams of protein a day, I'll split that between like 4 or 5 meals. So that frequency is high enough for me to not really need a snack because I've got a meal coming up soon anyway. But they might be like a smaller meal, like a protein bar, an apple, and I don't know, like something like that.
You're so okay.
Growing up as a bro.
Snacks. No, do you know what? When I was dieting a lot, I did similar in that I moved to 4 smaller meals because it would stop me from going absolutely haywire. I will try and make snacks fruit-based or things like protein shake, protein bar, depending on kind of the overall goals. I've recently found myself getting into the Rice Krispie Square thins. They were on offer. And there's no major difference between the normal ones and the thin ones, but they did like birthday cake flavored ones and they had like little mini Smarties on top.
Yeah, I had some of them.
And between training and meal times, or like if I was training, then going for a walk, then coming back for my next meal, I do like a fiber one brownie just because I'm quite a chocolate. I'm eating chocolate is good with me. But failing that, it's a genuine biscuit or some genuine chocolate.
Yeah.
You know.
I do quite like Grays do little like oat bite things. There's got some like chocolate and vanilla ones. They're quite good. Or actually all of them are very good.
Everything. We like everything. Yeah. We're not afraid of food on this team.
There is nothing I don't like. So I can look and be like, yeah, that'll do.
that I must admit I'm not fussy at all, which does help / also hinder life.
Yeah.
Do you love a packet of crisps as well?
But I think if we're going to go with like a more fitness
Oh, sorry.
answer.
I
Health
don't know
fitness
why I'm here.
answer.
What?
Like chopped raw carrots, cucumbers, like
Oh,
hummus
behave
dips.
yourself. That's not your
Yeah,
favorite.
that kind of stuff.
Right, remember,
I
this
do
is your
actually quite like
favorite
it.
snack. Yeah, so do I, but it's not my
More like
favorite.
if I'm dieting, it's one of my favorites because you get like, or in like the summer because it's like cool and it's like
Yes,
refreshing.
watermelon. I
Oh
love
yeah,
watermelon.
yeah.
Okay. Did we turn that around to make it relatively fitness?
We tried.
We tried. Okie dokie. Oh, 2 questions and then we're done. Should I measure and know my BMI?
No, I don't think it's worth it. You're better off tracking other metrics, other data. BMI doesn't really give you anything, especially if you're someone that is resistance training, because that's going to skew it anyway. Like I'm like class as morbidly obese or something.
Are you? I'm overweight.
I'm I'm borderline obese.
I like it. I like it. I'm actually going to I'm going to work mine out now. Hang on. So I've got my little spreadsheet. I'm guesstimating my weight because I haven't actually weighed myself. Oh, yep. 25.9. Hello. Yep, overweight. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't give you any
What do you do
actionable
with that
data to
information? Nothing.
No.
Do you remember in places like BHS where they used to have those scales that you could put a pound into and it told you your height, your weight, your BMI, and what your weight range should be?
Yeah.
Did you ever stand on those? My like healthy
think I
weight range was something like 9 stone 4 to 10 stone 4. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh wow, I've seen 10 stone once in my life.
Yeah.
Upsetting, but there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Oh no, there's 2. Sorry, no, there's 2. Hip thrusts on a laying leg curl. Thoughts?
I've
done it on a leg extension. So you know, like when you wiggle your shoulder blades under
yeah.
the pad of a leg extension. I've done that,
Similar.
but this was back in the days when I didn't really hip thrust. On a laying leg curl,
Yeah, same principle. Like some of them do have like the larger pads, not like the 2 separate ones like
the 2
Ironworks.
separate.
Yeah,
Wow.
you wouldn't get in that one. I mean, in a pinch you could, but
No point.
no. Like how the machine is angled as well is to kind of rotate round, so it would be a bit of a awkward loading pattern. It's not going directly down against the hips, so I don't think it's really the best movement. And someone's probably going to want to get on there to train their hamstrings, so
and they're not going to appreciate that.
No, like just get a bar and do some barbell hip thrusts.
Stop bicep curling in a squat rack, people. It's not appropriate. You also shouldn't lunge on a deadlift platform. If I ever have a gym, there will be strict guidelines. I've seen personal trainers getting their clients to do like alternating lunges with no barbell on a deadlift platform. I think it's just because they like being on the platform.
Yeah.
And they're like, look at me.
It's like
Thankfully,
me. I'm on a stage.
Do you know what? That's what this guy thinks. Yeah. Anyway, I could do a whole podcast episode on him. Right. Last question. What's this new thing? Everyone's on the stepper. And this is Ellie. And she said, I do not have the coordination for that. She doesn't. She would probably fall off. But I feel like the steppers had another revival. So a couple of years ago, we had all the girls doing the kickbacks on their interval training on a stepper, everything. I don't like the stair ones because you're walking to nowhere. I prefer the pedal one, you know, where you just go like up and down. I don't know why that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's back on the stepper hype. I don't know what it's about.
So there isn't much to it apart from the fact like that people will follow people. People are sheep. So when they see their favorite person doing it, they like that and they think they need to do it. And the thing about the stepper is that it's hard.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have any kind of perpetual momentum, like a bike or like a treadmill that carries on going, and your momentum kind of carries you. You have to press each time. But the thing that then is a potential issue is that it's taking more effort for you to do. So it's harder and more direct muscular contraction each time you're stepping. So it becomes more of like a high intensity resistance session, which is then going to have a carryover effect to your normal resistance based sessions. So that could then be detrimental. As long as that's not the case, then you're right. You can do whatever you enjoy. It doesn't really matter. Like, the step is just hard. And but it is, and people are kind of sadistic in the sense that they think if something's harder, it's better. So you'll get these people that find the stepper really hard because it's like a constant pressing sort of motion. It's like being on a bike with the dial like cranked right up, and you just got to push each time. It will set your quads on fire.
Yeah.
And when people feel that burn and that like build up of lactic acid and just a high intensity sort of strenuous activity, they're like, yes, it's working because it's hard. But like generally, like the aim of cardio is either going to be one, increasing your cardiovascular capacity, or two, just kind of burning calories to increase your deficit to lose body fat. And if you can do something like long walks that are going to be more kind of mindful, still burn calories and not be detrimental to your resistance-based sessions, then that's going to be better in generally. But if you do like it, crack on. But most gyms only have like one or two anyway, so
I know. Wise words from our Luke there. If you like it, crack on. There you go.
Rule for life.
Rule of life. I like that a lot. Yeah, you won't find me on a stepper sometimes. Okay, that's it.
Is that the last question?
Yeah, that's it. I enjoyed those. Beautiful.
Cool. Right, we'll have to get some more questions for the next
episode.
Yeah.
Yay.
We'll speak to you all soon. Bye.